Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Beatrice Hyppolite and this is your world. So now let's see the impact on mental health.
Oh.
We have anxiety and depression, low self-esteem,
Yes.
sleep disturbances.
Yes. Because truthfully, whenever I would say your body or your immune system, like whenever it's off, it's going to affect every aspect of your life. Sometimes, as we stated earlier, when you ignore toxic behavior or when you let it go on for too long, it can cause you to have a mental breakdown. It can cause you to have anxiety because now you don't know who you can depend on, so you're always anxious, right? You don't know what's coming next, so it breeds a certain level of anxiety, inside of you because you don't know what's about to happen at any given moment. You don't know if, and again, even if it's not necessarily physical, but let's say you are in a relationship with someone who comes home in a irregular mood. You don't know what to expect. So every time, you're always anxious. And again, when you have anxiety, sometimes it does lead to lack of sleep because you're anxious all the time. Now, when it's time for you to go to sleep, your mind is wandering and you can't sleep. So anxiety, can't sleep, or depression. Sometimes because of this situation that you're in, especially if you have been isolated or you've isolated yourself, you might go through depression because now you have no one to talk to and you've internalized everything. So now you've just reached a state where you feel sad all the time and you don't even know what to do to get out of it, right? Because, sometimes we have seasonal depression and we know that. And sometimes we have depression after major life events occur. But sometimes you have depression because you're in such a bad situation
and you don't know how to deal with it.
Exactly. And so you've internalized it and now it's eating away at you. And
or some people may be even ashamed of doing that. So it's like there are a lot of people who don't want to go and tell their business or tell somebody that, hey, my partner have been treating me or talk to me in a very
derogatory way. Yes.
You're not comfortable to go and tell because you don't want people to see you less than you were supposed to.
Vulnerable.
Or to say, you know what, he put his hand or her hands on me, especially for men. Women, we tend to express our feelings way more
emotionally
compared to men because men were taught to keep it inside, not to show emotion. You're a man, you cannot, cry, you cannot complain. So everything you have to just man up and deal with it. But at the end of the day, men do have emotions too.
Yeah.
And they because they are human beings.
Yes.
So it's like it will be very difficult to find a man to go and say, you know what, she made me feel that way, or she put her hands on me.
Yeah.
Because
it's embarrassing.
for people,
right? Yeah.
So
it's embarrassing.
And you come and talk about that because they don't want to feel ashamed. They don't want to be judged. They don't want to feel less than they were supposed to. Or it's the ego. Ego trying to play a major role into it too. But at the end of the day, so it's a problem that is affecting both men and women.
And also, I would say within our community too, the stigma of therapy is still, is still an issue for some, right? So some people don't want to admit that they need that type of help because, we've heard the sayings that like if you go to a therapist or a psychiatrist, you're crazy, right? So some people don't feel comfortable seeking that type of help because in their community, they may feel like something is wrong with them. So I just think that, sometimes because of our fears or the fears that have been passed down to you or the stigmas, you don't seek the resources that are available to you. Yeah.
Because, you don't want to be judged, so it is unfortunate, but it's a reality of life. The same way we have the the mental health component, there are some physical components attached to toxic relationships, such as loneliness, investment of time, emotion. So you have a lot of change in your body. So people will eventually deal with high blood pressure, diabetes. So it's a lot. And when we are dealing in situation like that, we really have to pay attention to our body. So if you are dealing with a stressful or a toxic relationship, and you see that, hey, if you are a woman and you're not dealing with any menopause, you're constantly sweating and having those hot flashes, it's time for you to go and check with your primary, and you feel that any little thing you'll get panic. So it's
panic attacks.
Check with your physician. And like Esther just mentioned, so seek for therapy.
I agree with that. Seek therapy, go to your physician, because I know people who were going through stressful, phases in their life, and as adults, they had a panic attack for the first time. And they didn't even know what it was because they never had a panic attack before. And then when they went to the doctor, that's when they found out like they were very stressed out with, because of situations they were dealing with, and they were having panic attacks. Because I think sometimes when we're not familiar with something, right? Like if you've lived all your life and never had a panic attack, and you have a panic attack for the first time in your 30s, you may not even know what a panic attack is, what it feels like, what it looks like. And, you feel all this pressure, you might feel like you're about to die. And then when you go to the doctor, you find out like, oh, you're under some very high stress. Or like you said, high blood pressure. Because sometimes, you just go to the doctor for a routine checkup and even like your blood pressure is very high. And again, you've been holding all of this in, but I probably have an idea why, because you've been dealing with some things that you haven't addressed. You've been dealing with this situation you haven't told anyone. So now you have to get these things under control.
Esther, what would be your point of view on those who normally say, I love him, I love her, I know the situation that I'm dealing with, it's not too cool, but I love him, I love her. If you were to say something to those people, what that would be?
I will tell you. So I have different approaches, right? The most simplest one I always tell people when they just talk about love, I tell them to write down the pros and the cons of this relationship and to really look it over. And I've done that exercise so many times. I do have a background in social work, and a lot of people come to me for advice on different things. And I'll tell you that I've had people do that exercise over the years, like friends of mine. And when they do it, when they write on paper and they see the pros and it shocks them because they've never thought about it. But now all of a sudden they've put just the pros and cons of this relationship. And I tell them, just write the facts as they are. What are the pros of staying in this relationship? What are the cons? And I can tell you 9 out of 10 times when people have done that activity, the cons outweigh the pros. And sometimes when you see it on paper, it forces you to know that you have to take action because you can't ignore it anymore. Like sometimes you know it, but sometimes when you see it on paper, you have to do something about it. So my advice would be to whoever, even if you love someone, write down your pros and your cons of staying or leaving that situation and start there.
Okay, my next question. How do cultural or societal norms influence our perception of what normal in a relationship?
Well, cultural, as a Haitian American person, I come from a generation where, my parents, they would usually just tell you to stay, right? If you have kids, they're going to tell you to stay. They don't even want to know what the deals are. So I think sometimes when it's cultural pressure, you have to know who you can go to in your family, right? So if you have the type of mom who, even if you said, Mom, he's cheating on me, she's still going to tell you to stay. You have to find an outlet or a source, whether it's therapy, to talk it through and find out if that is the best decision for you. Because sometimes your family's going to tell you to stay. From the societal standpoint, again, I think it depends on what activities you're into, right? Are you a church-going person? Do you have a supportive church community? Do you have a community that's also just going to tell you to stay because of what it looks like on paper, and they don't think about, let's say if you're married, the stigma of divorce, or if you have children, what that looks like, right? Because oftentimes people will tell you to stay for the kids. Like, oh no, you have kids, you can't leave. But I think the other side to that, especially if you're in a toxic relationship, is that what you want your kids to see? Do you want your kids to see mom and dad in this situation? Is this the example that you want your kids to grow up? And there was this influencer I followed, and I remember when she said this statement. She said, one of the questions that she asked herself when choosing a mate is, can she see this person as a role model to their future children? And I think, it seems like a simple question, but I think sometimes, and you could reverse it, can you see this woman as a role model to your future children, right? Because sometimes we choose people based on appearance or how they make us feel. That's wonderful. But then now you have children. And is this person the person you see that you would like for your kids to follow behind? So when you're in that situation, I think that's the advice. Whatever stage of life that you're at, if I have children, is this the behavior that I want my kids to grow up and see? That answers your question. Because if every time, like, you guys are arguing all the time, and when the kids come, you try to get quiet, kids still pick up on the cues and the tension that's happening. And just because you close the door or you think you're arguing late at night, kids still hear it, they feel it, they see it, they know when their parents are not connected.
And sometimes it can be step parents.
Absolutely. So they know when there's a problem. So sometimes we say we want to make it work for the kids, but we're giving our kids a bad example of what a good relationship looks like.
And you know what? According to research, those kids, who tend to experience toxic relationships from their parents or domestic violence, when they become adults,
That's what they
not
do.
only, many of them will kind of exhibit the same behaviors, but according to research, they will engage more in substance abuse behavior.
That's true, because now they're looking for behavior to help them cope. Right? Because they grew up with a lot of stresses that may or may not have been addressed or dealt with, right? Most likely they may not have gone to therapy. So now when, they always want to escape the reality of what they're dealing with.
Yeah, so it's a lot to unpack.
Absolutely.
Could you walk us through a realistic breakaway plan for someone ready to leave?
To be honest with you, I think the first thing people should do is therapy. Even if you plan to leave, especially when children are involved, I think counseling is necessary to help you get through that process, right? Because a lot of us leave angry. But if you have kids, you cannot stay in an angry place. You want to be able to work through separation in a healthy way so that you can become co-parents. Because a lot of times, it's the kids who suffer when you leave in such an angry way. Because the reality is some situations don't work. But if you're able to navigate it in a way where you can leave on a healthy setting or footing, at least now we can look to do what's best for our children and, leave in a healthy way. So I think the best way for people to leave is through mediation or therapy, so that they can find a healthy way to set a plan. Because one thing, you can't just think you're going to leave today and you're gone tomorrow. You have to put a plan in place.
The bitterness that you want to live with may serve you a purpose, but will not serve any purpose to the kids.
It won't. So you have to put a plan in place, right? And I think if you guys can, if it's not a situation of domestic violence, because that's a completely different situation. But I think if it's just a repeated pattern of toxic behavior, try to get to a place where you can leave on a way where you both agree, like, this is the best thing. What does it look like? If you have a home, who's going to keep the home? Who's going to move? What does visitation look like? because the reality is that if you don't do it in an amicable way and you try to do it through the courts, you spend years in courts fighting.
And one thing that I've seen, when people live in a relationship in a bitterness way or in a bitter way, so now you get to the kids, will find him or herself in a situation to pick and choose.
Absolutely. They're in the middle.
They are in the middle.
They're in the middle, and then they're going to choose the side of whoever gives them what they want at the moment.
Yeah, or sometimes some mothers, will kind of like, brainwash the kids against the father, and some father will do the same.
Absolutely.
Brainwash the kids against the mother. At the end of the day, whatever that is going on between the both of you, it's your own personal business. But that child at any given point should not be losing his mother or his father, her mother or her father, because hey, those two parents should, you are valuable into that child's life. And solve your issue and let the child have the privilege to have both parents.
But sadly, it's easier said than done, right? Because the reality is that when a marriage ends or when a relationship ends and there's children involved, the feelings are what people can't let go of. Like you said, the bitterness, the anger. So if I leave angry, all I want to do is hurt you, and vice versa, right? Because that I can't stand you. So I'm not thinking about, you know what? Even though I can't stand you, we still have to work together to parent this child. That's not how a lot of people think. A lot of people leave in their feelings. And so I think that's where the additional drama comes, because you had a toxic relationship and now you have a toxic separation.
And now you're gonna raise a child who will grow up with a lot of bitterness, either against the mother or against the father,
or against both. I mean, or a level of both, right? Because kids always have an idea of how they think things should play out, right? And what it looks like. Sometimes I like to say one parent is the serious parent and one parent is the fun parent. And a lot of times, not in all cases, but a lot of times I say the fun parent is the dad, because he usually, has them less. And so that gets to be the weekend parent, right? So mom is the strict one, but dad is the fun one, because you see dad every weekend or every other weekend, and dad can take you out for the fun things. But a lot of times, because there's so much tension, dad may or may not see the child a lot during the week, right? Because the kid is with the primary parent. So now, even though, dad may have left the home, I'm angry a lot at mom because she's the serious one. She's the one that gives me the rules. She's the one that gives me the discipline. But when I go to dad, it's fun. It's, it's light. So now I feel like, I want to be with my dad, not looking at how much the mom may be doing.
But some people may just use the child that way.
That too.
To hurt the other parent. I know, a couple after 15 years were not able to
work it out.
So hey, they call it a quit. But they had it 12 years old. And I was, very pleased by the way they handled the situation into raising that boy. Daddy used to have that boy every other week. He makes sure that he knows the rules at
mommy's house.
Because he was there for 12 years. He knows, how things used to be. The first time the boy said, "Mommy said so," he's like, he will shoot mommy a text. Did you give permission for that to happen? Because at the end of the day, it's a hard situation, but he tried to
manage it.
And I remember, one day I was really compliment him on the way that, that he was handling the situation. He said, "Let me tell you something. So-and-so know that I love her so much. It just happened that, hey, things didn't work out. But at the end of the day, we both love that boy. And I know whatever she does, it's for the best interest of that boy."
But
so I will never allow myself to complicate life for her.
That's a mature situation.
Because if I die tomorrow, he will only have her. And I make sure that whatever she wants, that's what I do when the boy comes to me. And I feel that it was a very good approach.
That's a commendable, mature situation, right? And I think I know more situations that are not like that than that are like that, right? Because I think, again, most people who I know who've gone through divorce, it was usually a bitter divorce. And I see how it seeped into the raising of the children.
Because the relationship was always about them.
Absolutely.
Even after they decide to bring 1, 2, or 3 kids into the relationship, they still keep the focus of the relation on them.
So I think after some time, when they've gotten over the bitterness, is when you can see a shift in the parenting, because now people have finally let go of whatever anger or bitterness they had. And then I think, again, you were able to look at the bigger picture and think about what was best for the kids. And I think that is when you see the shift, again, as I said, when you remember the focus. Me and you and I are no longer married, but we have to co-parent.
Okay, so my next question, how can friends and family best support someone in a toxic relationship without enabling?
Oh, I say the open door policy, right? You always have to let people know that you're there for them. And sometimes you do have to take a step back and let them figure it out, but you still let them know that you're there to support them. And support doesn't mean that you agree with the decisions they're making. It just means that when you're ready, we are still here for you. Because what I realize is sometimes if you interject too much, you may push the person further away, and you may push the person into isolation, because now they realize, oh, you know what? I can't go to her because she can't stand my partner, or he can't stand my partner, so I'm not going to say anything. So you've kind of made that person feel like they don't have anybody. But if you kind of support them from a distance, I may not agree with what's happening, but I'm still here for you. When they're ready, they'll come to you. So I just think it's, just establishing that you have an open door policy for the person when they're ready to, come back to the fold.
Okay, so this question gonna be my last question before we, have a book that just came out. We're gonna have to talk about it and give some statistics. But my last question to finish with this set of questions is, what message will you want to leave with listeners who might be questioning their own relationship?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know what? I would say any relationship that you're in, it should be one that you're proud of. It should be one that challenges you in a good way. And it should be one that allows you to grow and where you have self-reflection, and both of you can do that together. I think you should think about your relationship legacy. That's how I always like to think of it, as what legacy does your relationship leave behind? And what legacy is your relationship currently providing for you? Do you feel like you're in a space where you're growing health in a healthy way, where you're being supported, where you feel loved, where you feel cherished, where you feel vulnerable? Or do you feel like you have to hide certain parts of yourself? Do you feel like you can't share certain aspects of your relationship with others because it's shameful? So I think that's what we should think about. What does our relationship legacy tell us about ourselves?
Okay, so of that said, I'm gonna read some statistics on the prevalent gender differences, mental health impact, circle of abuse, and economic costs.
Okay.
We'll start with the prevalence. About 1 in 3 people, roughly 30%, report having been in a toxic romantic partnership at some point
In their
lives.
That's
For gender differences, women are slightly more likely to identify a relationship as toxic. 33% for women versus 28% for men. Though the gap narrows when controlling for reporting bias. For mental health impact, according to research, People in toxic relationship have 2 to 3 times higher risk of depression, anxiety, and substance use disorder compared to those in healthy or non-romantic relationships. The circle of abuse. Research indicates approximately 70% of individuals who experience emotional or physical abuse in one relationship will encounter similar dynamic in a later partnership. Economic costs. In the U.S., intimate partner violence costs an estimated $8.3 billion.
Wow.
Every year in healthcare. Wow.
It's a big number.
It's a big
number.
It's a big number.
Oh, it's a big problem.
So it's to tell you, so it's like, though people may often talk about, toxic relationship just to talk about it. But as much that, people may not to emphasize only the way that they should, but it's a serious matter.
It is.
And I want to thank you for taking time of your busy schedule to come and have this delighted conversation with us.
But
now let's talk about serious stuff. Now, what we just spoke was very serious, but the book is serious as well. So tell us about this book. What's the title?
So this book, Love of a Lifetime by E. Michelle, that's my pen name. It was published in June, and this book has been 20 years in the making.
Oh, okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. So to be honest, this book, the idea stemmed from a toxic relationship that I was in when I was young. And I think when it ended, for me, I journaled as part of the process. Because I went through so many feelings of, just sadness and grief, even though I know this wasn't the person for me. But I think, again, it's what I said earlier. There were red flags, but there were a lot of green flags. So I went through the phase of like, oh, maybe it will be like this again, right? Because I think we always want to be optimistic and hopeful, and you always want to see the good in people. And I like to say I'm the queen of the benefit of the doubt, right? Sometimes you give people the benefit of the doubt when they don't deserve it. So I think when I started to journal and write this book 20 years ago, it's what helped me to get over that relationship.
It's a fiction, not
It is
a memoir.
fiction. No, it's fiction. But I use the feelings that I felt at that time to create these characters.
Okay.
So it's like, even though it's fiction, I feel like the feelings are based on real situations. Yes. And I think, and because I do love to write, I think that's what made it fun, right? Because if you turn a dark situation into something interesting, like you create something out of it, like I think that's what makes you get over it. So I think I found joy in creating these characters and just inventing, these people. But again, it came from a real place. So I think that's what made it interesting as I was writing the characters and thinking about the experiences that I wanted them to have. And like, there would be certain times where I would say certain lines, like I felt it because I'm like, this is how I felt in that moment. So I feel like I gave character life through the things I went through.
Your experience. Okay.
Yes. So for me, this was a labor of love. And it was just something that it did take a long time for me because, again, my voice, 20 years ago was very different from my voice now. So I would put it away, come back to it. And then finally, when I got serious about it, I, got with a publishing company. And when they edited it, they had so many things for me to look over. And then even as I read certain things, I'm like, I don't even think this way anymore. So I kind of made edits, according to, I would say, my point of view as an adult now. So interestingly enough, I think one of the lines that you saw in the book earlier, which I feel like is a very, like it goes in line with our conversation of toxic relationships. It's taken from page 85, and the character is Dominique, and she said, I felt like I had fallen in love with a lie, and that our relationship was just based on lies. I thought back to him telling me that he would take his time with me. Of course he would take his time. He was still having sex with other girls. He said he cheated on me again when he found himself really falling for me because he had never been in love before and it scared him. I felt like such a fool lying there with him. And when you think about this line, imagine you're in a relationship and someone who says they love you says they cheated on you because they were falling in love with you, right? And when you think, it's like, that doesn't even make sense. But the thing is that there are people who do things like that. Like they give you bad behavior and then they blame it on being vulnerable. Like, I didn't know what to do, so I just went out there and slept with her for one last time, right? And if that is such a level of toxicity that I think sometimes people eat it up because it sounds like, oh my gosh, at least he told me the truth. Or, you know what, maybe he really did love me and that's why he did this. Like we make excuses.
Or she.
Yeah, that's why I said we. That's why I said we. Yeah, we, he or she. We know we make excuses for what we want and sometimes we make excuses for what we want to believe in, even if we know it's not true. And I think also when you think about saying, I fell in love with a lie, some relationships are based on a lie.
Yes.
But by the time you find out that it was based on a lie, you have been so far into it that you don't even know what to do.
Or some people said, I invested too much.
Yes, that's a big one. Even when you found out that the foundation was based on a lie, imagine if you've been with this person 3 years. We sometimes trick ourselves into believing, well, at least, like they say, it's better to be with the devil you know than the one you don't. Like, well, you know what? At least I know he's just a liar. I could leave him or her and get with someone else and they do worse. So I'm just going to stay here because I've already put in this time. So sometimes we trick ourselves into staying into toxic relationships. Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, this book, Love of a Lifetime.
Where we can find the book, how much is the book?
Okay, the book is $19.
Is there a book signing that we can attend?
I had a book launch already, but it's on Amazon, Books A Million, and Barnes & Noble. So you can order it online. I don't have any more personal copies because when I sold them all at the book launch. I had a book launch back in June when the book came out, but it is still available online. It's a great stocking stuffer as the holidays are coming up. It's a great vacation read. It's a great, I say, even though I've, read it obviously, but when I travel, I take it on me and I read some pages again. Like and it's very lightweight, as you can see. They call this more of a novella because it's about 165 pages. So it's a fun read, very interesting, and I feel like it takes you through the emotions of falling in love, falling out of love, toxic relationships, and getting past
there are
toxic
some
relationships.
tips in it too on how to
Absolutely.
solve or address some toxic relation.
It does talk about that, and just recognizing when you do find someone that's not toxic, because the reality is that sometimes when we have a pattern of toxic relationships, we don't even know what someone who's not toxic looks like anymore because we're so used to toxic. So that's very important.
When we are kind of blessed to have somebody who's not toxic into our lives, like you just said, because we are so used to the opposite, we don't know how to embrace
and receive
value that person.
Yes, and sometimes we mess it up. So this book does take you on that journey. So again, Love of a Lifetime by E. Michelle. Please check it out. Give me your feedback on Amazon. You could write a review on Goodreads as well. So, and I'll give you my Instagram. My Instagram is at author E. Michelle. My website is there, so you can click my website as well to purchase the book.
Okay, so hey, get your copy.
Get your copy.
So that will be a good gift, that girlfriend, that boyfriend, that mother, that sister, that niece. Yes. Anybody who can read, who's grown enough to read about toxic relationship, please get them a copy. So, let's go out there, go to Amazon, So the name of the book is Love of a Lifetime by E. Michelle. I already got my copy. Any last thought before we end?
Thank you for having me. And the last statistic you read about the cost of intimate partner violence, even though I've seen that before, like to hear it out loud is very astounding. And it just lets us know that as a society, we have to do better and we have to value healthy relationships more. Yeah. So thank you for this topic, right up my alley. I appreciate the time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, girl. Good job. I love the book. It was an easy read too.
It was. It is an easy read.
I'll let you go. It was with you, Dr. Beatrice Hyppolite, with Your World.